If you still think that Copr SDK is complicated, but you still want to use Python and don't want to do the raw REST API, then your other option is to use what's called ACI Toolkit, which is another Python library for ACI, but with much simplified syntax. The downside, though, of the ACI Toolkit is the supported features are not as comprehensive as the Copr SDK, and you might find yourself not being able to do certain things, and that's just a trade-off. Okay, so with the ACI Toolkit, you first need to download the ACI Toolkit from GitHub, and you can just go to this link right here, github.com datacenter ACI Toolkit. Just download it. There's an instruction if you click into the README file right here, how to install it. Now you need the 2.7 Python. All right, you can download the zip file, extract it to your local repository. I already did that, and it's actually on the desktop right here. When you download that zip file, extract it, you get pretty much the same content as we saw earlier, all the files. CD into it, and then perform the install with the setup.py. All right, so that's how to install. And then if you're interested in the syntax of the API, then you can look up the ACI Toolkit command or API reference right here. ACI Toolkit module. There's different modules together. Like the session one is for locking into the APIC, but the main one is the ACI Toolkit module. And here you can find all of the reference syntax for all of the supported functions. Like for us, what we've been doing is creating bridge domains, so we can look for bridge domain. You can see it right there. There's a class for creating bridge domain and a bunch of methods that comes with it, like add childs, add contacts, add L3 out for L3 out association to bridge domains and things like that. Okay, let's go back. I have also prepped an ACI Toolkit compatible Python right here. So let's take a look. The format is more like the REST API Py with the AAA functions and the bridge domain function. With the AAA, you can see we define 3 variables that contains the URL, username, password, right? And then there's a session function. Oh, by the way, you have to import the toolkit right there and the ACI session, which are the 2 modules that we're using. We'll import all the function as is, so we can refer to the function name directly. Right, feed in all the parameters, do not verify, certificates, lock in, what you get back is a token, then you return pretty much the token right there. Right, so the function returns token. For the bridge domain, we feed in the name of the bridge domain, subnet, and then tenant, as well as the token. Create the tenant object so we can be referred to inside the bridge domain, because the bridge domain has to belong to a tenant. Set the MAC address, set the RFLUT, unicast routing, yes. Unknown unicast, hardware proxy, and then FLUT, the unknown multicast. Right, create the VRF object and create the subnet object. Again, using the syntax that's being shown in this page right there. And eventually pushed it to the APIC. All right, then the main function, we just call the AAA command or functions to get the token. And then let me uncomment that section. And then we call the bridge domain function to create the bridge domain 3. Tenant prod, and then the ACI token obtained earlier. So let me go back and I'm going to go ahead and run that ACI toolkit.py. Yep, you can see same result, bridge domain 3 created, VRF1, subnet 34.1. And from there, you can run the command multiple times, just like earlier with the for loop and the dictionary for all the 3 subnets. Same concept, just different function, because we're now using the ACI toolkit. Right, so just uncomment that section. run it again, it should create the bridge domain 3 times with different parameters, and we got our 4, 5, and 6 right there. Right, and the length of that is roughly the same as the Culper SDK, but you can see that the syntax is much more simplified. So it will be this versus this. But again, this, you can pretty much add all the options that you can think of are supported by the ACI, as you can see. As opposed to this, you're at the mercy of what is being exposed by the methods right here. So that's for using the ACI toolkit with Python. Let me go back and again delete 3456. The last option that I want to show you is still based on the ACI toolkit. You can actually run ACI toolkit in an interactive mode. And with that, what you get is something that is a resemblance of Nexus ACL. All right, so what you do, let me switch over to this guy. Right now we're in the desktop. You need to get into that ACI toolkit directory. Right, in there, there's a folder called application. Actually, let me do this. It might be more readable if I do it from the actual folder. Right, under there, there's an application and then CLI. All right, so copy that path, paste. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit right there. And then the command that you need to use to execute that, it's because you're basically going to be executing that file right there. ACI toolkit, CLI.py, let me right click to paste the command in. So you run it by Python, ACI toolkit, CLI.py, and then you need to specify the login information, the username, password, and the URL. All right, with that, if you hit enter, it will lock in and get something that looks like a command prompt. Right, fabric. With this, there's limited sets of commands that you can do, like show tenant. Okay, you can do question mark somewhat, but sometimes it doesn't really work. With show tenant, you get the prod, the common, the def, the infra, all the tenants that we have. From here, you can go configured, or you can switch to. Switch to basically makes you hop into another tenant. So all the configuration that you perform there will be for that one tenant. And we can do that by, and tab doesn't work here either, so you have to type it out. Switch to prod, and now we're under the tenant prod. I guess they're trying to make it look like a context or a VDCs in Nexus, I guess. So now we're under the prod. The question mark again. You can switch back to equivalent of a system VDC or the admin VDC. But here you can continue with configure. Question mark, you have an option of app, context or VRF, interface, tenant, bridge domain, contract. So you can create a bridge domain, call bridge domain 3, enter, and on the left hand side, you got the bridge domain 3 there. If you want to tie it to context, because right now, if you click on bridge domain 3, it doesn't tie to anything as far as VRF. So you can do context VRF1, enter, and you get the VRF association right there. Same with the subnet. Currently, there's no subnet. And the equivalent of creating subnet for this is IP address. Therefore, .1/24. And there you go. You got the subnet being created. All right, but there's not much else you can do. You can see the only option in the bridge domain is either the context or IP or show command, but that's it. Exit. And to delete it, just do no of that. Bridge domain 3. And bridge domain's gone. and you can switch back. There you go. Right, so as you can see, the command options is very limited and probably even less than the regular ACI toolkit. And also I found this somewhat buggy as well. So you might not want to consider using this unless you can find some use to it. But I just want to make you aware of the existence of this interactive option on the ACI toolkit. Alright, as you can see, there are many ways for you to configure ACI. There is actually another way, which is the CLI of the APIC server, where you can either console or SSH to the APIC, and the command will look just like the Nexus. Also interactive. And that's something that we have not covered in this video series, but regardless of what you do, all of these gets translated back to REST API calls. So I would say using the raw REST API with Postman is probably good if you want to repeat a single task quickly one time, like mapping access port to EPG without having to create the whole script for it because you know that you want to do it again. But if you are looking to automate multiple tasks in series that can be reused, Cobra SDK gives you the most flexibilities. Also knowing that most of the tasks, if not all, are supported, right, with Cobra SDK. As opposed to the ACI toolkit, right, less features are supported, but the syntax are much simpler. And that wraps up our video on ACI programmability. You can visit our website to view an extensive list of our lab videos and sign up to get access to additional lab contents. Thank you for watching labminutes.com, and I'll see you guys in the next video.